All right, here we go. September is in full swing. It has been a wild month so far. For those of you who are in the Erie area who love sports, we've had high school football games that have gone down to the wire each and every single week. NFL's gone off to a crazy start. You've got two of our local teams that are in some kind of shambles, and the other seems like they're the Super Bowl favorite. And oh, by the way, the Otters home opener is Saturday. We're going to be a big part of that. And the SeaWolves are in the playoffs. So it's a great time of year for Erie sports, and we're thrilled to be here just talking about it a little bit tonight. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Gem City Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by our friends at Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more information, go to their website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can simply call their phone number during normal business hours at 814-734-3433. 814-734-3433. Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. Packed show tonight. In just a moment, Raelio Castillo of Tigers Minor League Report joining us after the SeaWolves losing game 1 yesterday. Going to talk if they can come back against Altoona in games 2 and 3 tomorrow and potentially Friday at UPMC Park. And the Tigers organization as a whole, they've already got 2 championships within their organization. They're looking to add some more. So a lot going on with the SeaWolves and Tigers and who we could see up in Detroit at some point soon. And all that fun stuff. Trevor Kubea is joining us a little bit later in the show. Of course, if you missed it, we announced our partnership just earlier this week with the Erie Otters to add Off the Record podcast to our podcast network. That'll be every Thursday at 7 o'clock. We cannot wait for that show. Talking a bit about that. And, of course, the home opener coming up on Saturday with the season kicking underway a little bit later this week. So looking forward to having Trevor on the show. And then, of course, as always, to end our Wednesday shows, Nick Artman coming on to talk a lot of things with the NFL, and I'm giving my week 3 NFL headline predictions that are always a little bit more ridiculous, but it's still fun nonetheless to get to talk about it. All right, let's kick things off with the Erie SeaWolves. For those of you who didn't watch the game last night, it was an early slogfest for Erie, and then ultimately the 6th inning is what did them in. Erie loses 11-5 in game 1 to Altoona at what was the game one of the Southwest Division Series. Erie scored 4 in the 4th. Took a 4-1 lead, and then got all the way to the 6th inning, and then Garrett Burhan essentially fell apart, and the bullpen didn't really do him any favors. So now game 2 tomorrow night, and the SeaWolves will turn to Andrew Sears, looking to potentially tie the series and then send it to a game 3 for a team that's looking for a 3rd straight league championship. And really no one better. We love to bring him in anytime there's talk with baseball. Raelio Castillo of Tigers Minor League Reports. It's been a while, my friend. How you been?
Not too bad, Isaac. It's been busy. Last night we were monitoring. I was at the Tigers game last night, and then we were monitoring Lakeland and West Michigan and keeping tabs on Erie. And that was a tough watch last night. Must admit that.
I do want to start with this, though. It is fascinating. We talk all the time about the organization, right, and how deep it is top to bottom. And we saw last night 2 championships come, right? The Flying Tigers end up getting the Florida State League championship in what was a great title for them. And, of course, West Michigan earns the Midwest League championship. The organization we've talked a lot is great from top to bottom. But when you look at those 2 championships in and of themselves, with them being leagues below Erie, surprise to you? Is that something you think we'll probably see more forthcoming in future years for the Tigers organization?
It really depends on how healthy the pitching is, because right now, guys like Owen Hall, the guys who they just drafted that are pitching wise are just down. So if they can get that pitching going a little more add a little more depth, I think that's very good. And there was a couple guys like Kelvis Salcedo who pitched brilliant in Game 1 against Daytona. That's a guy to look out for. But it's also just, you have Carson Rucker, who I really thought he came in his own this year, and Bryce Rayner, I mean, he's going to come back from injury next year, probably start the season maybe in West Michigan. Who knows? But I think that the future is really bright there. And what West Michigan did this year, top to bottom, having the best season, one of the best minor league seasons in history, not only in Tigers history, but in minor league baseball history. Tip of the cap to Tony Capicelli, getting those guys ready. The fact that you had Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal getting promoted, and then you see the evolution of Isaac Pacheco, who will probably should start the season here next year. The 2 different teams, John Pack too, who led the Midwestern League, gone, and just it was such an impressive job top to bottom, and I think it's still going to continue on both of those levels.
I mean, I think the 92 wins for West Michigan is impressive to me. What's more impressive was you look at their run differential, and this is what I find crazy. I'm no mathematician, and I'm looking at the numbers from the rest of the league. If you combined the remainder of the teams in the Midwest League that had a positive run differential, it still would not equal what West Michigan's run differential was. They were plus 294, Roger. And I mean, again, this is a season you only play, I think it's 131 games. It's insane. 92 wins. Their offense was just ridiculous. And I think to your point, it's going to be even scarier if you see a guy like Rayner start the year in West Michigan this upcoming year. So, man, hats off to them. That must have been a heck of a season. Again, this is a team that's now was minus Andrew Graham. Of course, you mentioned the new manager coming in. Andrew comes up to Erie, so there was a manager shuffling it. It don't matter. That organization is still scary. So West Michigan gets it done. Lakeland gets it done. Let's talk the SeaWolves. In what was, I think, a bit of a confusing Game 1. We knew the offense was going to be there with the way that they really dominated Altoona the previous week, right, and how successful that they were. Take me through what your thoughts were on game number 1 and the fact that it was really one inning, the 6th, that did them in, right? 7 runs in the 6th was kind of clearly the turning point in that game last night.
Yeah, I mean, Burhan he was kind of on the ropes a little bit here and there, but I thought they would maybe turn in the bullpen a little early. And I thought even when I was looking at the playoff roster, maybe they get perhaps Jake Miller back, but Miller, they looked like they were going to rest him for Arizona Fall League. And I thought, because Miller would be a great addition, but just the fact that you knew this was going to be a series, because I mean, guys like Valdez, Emerin Valdez is going to be a pain in the butt. Tamir Johnson taking really patient approaches at plate, but Mitch Jebb, guy watching him at Michigan State, and I was a guy who I thought the Tigers should, because he fits that role so well, utility infielder, the infield single. It just, the defensive miscues, the defense has been a staple of the SeaWolves, even during when the Gabe Alvarez years. And so that, just see the error there by Mendoza, I felt like kind of broke the back a little bit. So that came as a shock to me a little bit, but I really felt that, the SeaWolves bullpen is one that we've seen dominate late end of August, but overall their ERA as a team was 4.02, which is a full run higher than it was in the first half. But I just didn't think it would come back to haunt them this quickly in Game 1. So it's a lot to have for Andrew Cedars coming in Game 2. We'll talk about in a second. But I really thought that they should have been more aggressive on getting the bullpen up quicker.
Again, we know one of the things in AA, really with any minor league team, is that you're beholden to what the organization up top wants, right? So the Tigers are making decisions as to whether guys like Miller are going to play, they're going to pitch, things of that nature. But I do think you saw Gabe Alvarez in the postseason, maybe minus the time where he was cool with throwing Austin Bergner, I think 7 innings in that game 2 or clinching third game a year or two ago. They go to bullpens quick because that was at times the strength of the team this year. I was a little surprised that Burhan goes 5 1/3 and they leave him in. That was ultimately the 5 runs that he gave up in total. I think what was the most interesting thing for me is looking at the Altoona lineup and how it was stacked. You make a great point about Mitch Jebb. He's a Saginaw kid, right? And he didn't grow up very far from Detroit. But to me, he's not the kind of guy that you would expect to be a leadoff hitter, yet he gets on base. And he did that with a hit and an RBI in the game last night. I think for Altoona, and what made it probably difficult with Erie is that they don't necessarily have a guy. This is at least in my opinion. I don't know if they have a extreme power bat that's going to necessarily, outside of maybe Valdez, right, who tanked last night, that's going to always put the ball out of the ballpark, but they get on base. And what I've seen in the last 2 years with the Somerset series and the Binghamton series, that if you could pitch around 2 or 3 hitters, you were probably going to be okay because the rest of that lineup just wasn't good enough. It wasn't the Somerset team of 2022 that had guys in the 9-hole who could probably play in the MLB as a 7 or 8 hitter. So I think with Altoona, that maybe, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Rogelio, but that's at least what I see, that the lineup is a little bit deeper than maybe what they've seen with previous playoff opponents in the last 2 or 3, 4 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in the series in Erie, they really worked at bats. I mean, they gave Erie a hard time that whole series, despite Erie coming back and winning the second half title in that whole series. It was just a prelude of things to come. And I think that what you like about everybody talks about the Connor Griffin versus Kevin McGonigal. And when I wrote my preview about this, there's more to Altoona than just Connor Griffin. I mean, Connor Griffin's having a great year for his age. Don't get me wrong. But guys like Mitch Jebb and Valdez, but a guy like, I think the one guy that stood out to me that I knew this was going to be a problem in this series is Tamir Johnson. I mean, he's a guy he's going to work those at bats. He's going to be, we've seen this with Boston and New York. Guys just work the count and be patient at the plate. And that bat right there, if the SeaWolves don't have a swing and miss guy, I mean, right now you look at Sanchez is out. He's going to be out for the series. Burhan is very hit and miss. And then you have Richard Gouache. So how do you stack that up? How do you stack up a team like that can work the counts like that? And so it's going to be really up to Sears to really make sure that he's getting that swing and miss stuff in the zone tomorrow.
And to your point, Johnson's a 381 career OBP. He was 363 this year. That's, I think, on average, you're looking at 50 to 60 percentage points higher than what the MLB is typically used to seeing. And I get it's a little bit more inflated in AA, but still, you got to get guys out. And you don't necessarily strike them out, but force them to put balls in the ground for ground balls. And to your point, the defense wasn't necessarily great last night. And so that brings us to tomorrow. Obviously, you got Andrew Sears going. It's probably not exactly who you would the rotation probably isn't who you'd love to have on the mound going into game 2 and game number 3. But take me through what we can expect from Sears tomorrow at UPMC Park against this Altoona lineup that is looking to do another number from last night.
Sears has come a long way since being at West Michigan. He's a guy that can really throw a fastball, slider, and changeup, and throw them really good, well, in a sense of just getting from north to south in terms of getting a slider going, but really in the zone. When he's zeroed in, I think he's one of the best strike throwers in the league this year, in the league, but also for the Tigers, just in general, because he's a guy who's not afraid to go inside. He's not afraid to throw in the zone, and he has the stuff to do that. And I think he's elevated himself a little bit to be in the conversation among the top 5 or top 6 starters for the Tigers next year going into 2026. And what he has to do is really get aggressive early on, because I think what Altoona is going to try to do is try to go aggressive and go first swing pitch on him and put the ball in play and cause some chaos that way. And so I think for Sears, it's just coming in with a game plan that keeps Altoona off balance, because this is a hard team to strike out as it is right now. And I think that Sears has to really be on point tomorrow in order for them to be at their game 3 on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the way that this game played out. Really, the 6th inning is the one inning which was lopsided the rest of the game. You can make the argument they got 3 in the 7th too, tagging Erie's bullpen. But I think the starting pitching, if it at least gets through 5, then you like your chances. I think the offense has to be a little bit better too as well. We've seen maybe a slow plod for guys like Clark and McGonigal and Briseño, who I don't know if they've necessarily taken off the way that we figured that they would in Erie, but they've been quality batters, no doubt. And then I think that brings me to my next point, Rogelio, because as much as I want to talk about the playoffs, I want to talk about the organization as a whole. Detroit, of course, barring some last couple of week collapse, is going to win the AL Central. We've seen 2 organizations already win championships, and you do a lot of insight with what things could look like down the road and whatnot with Detroit. If you are in that clubhouse, and I know you get a chance to speak with some players and AJ Hinch at times, what do you think the future approach is going to be for the organization? I have said for a couple of months now, I thought the smart thing to do would be to wait at the trade deadline and not move any big pieces, and they did that. And then when you look in the offseason, that's when you make your big move, because I still don't know if they're there to get to the ALCS, the World Series, or not. What do you think they're going to do, and what would you do if you're Detroit, knowing that you still have, even despite some, meddling play from Erie yesterday and maybe in the last few weeks, you still have a pretty damn good pipeline?
Isaac, I wish more fans thought like you, because there's a contingency of fans who are like yesterday during the Tigers loss to Cleveland, where it's just like, doesn't matter what they do in the minors, right. It doesn't matter, and they just freaked out. And I'm glad that you're thinking about this logically, because I look at it this way. If they were to make a trade for the ALCS this year, they would have to give up somebody like McGonigal, Clark, and Briseño, because that is something that would have put them over the edge. And you look at the Tigers pitching right now in the minor leagues, it is dangerously thin. And they have a couple that are pitchers that are going to be minor league free agents this year. The Tigers really have to be creative this offseason. And I like what you said, because I think that it does. They might have to trade some of they have a plethora of infield talent. They might have to go back to that, like they did with Jim Jarvis, to the trade to the Braves. They might have to do that again to get at least a body in there, an arm in there. So I think if I was them, this is what I would do. I would simply evaluate what they have in terms of injuries with pitchers, see what the Ty Maddens, those guys who were up at one point, and see what they have with them, and really kind of take an evaluation, because I think that your assessment was correct. The Tigers did not need to risk it all. They did what they could. I know it's conservative. I know people hate Scott Harris in this town for it, for whatever reason. Keep in mind that the Tigers have turned around. Like, for example, Baseball America put out a list today. In 2023, they're ranked 23rd. They gave the Tigers an A+ for the minor league season this year. That is significant progress. Baseball America is not like just some. They're very rigid about these things, and there is a lot of good up in terms of infield talent, some outfield talent. Jackson Strong's another guy I can think of too that we can see in Erie some point next year. However, it is the pitching that is concerning, and they have to address that this year, regardless. Between AAA and AA, you look at the rotation right now, Isaac. Off the top of your head, do you really think of the top 3 in Erie next year? No, I can tell you right now, you can't, because it's going to be very difficult to fill that void.
Well, and to your point, I think the problem that you also run into if you're Detroit, and you can't not be thinking about this in the back of your mind, is this Skubal going to resign? Because at least for right now, signs are pointing towards no. And if that's the case, then you rely on, okay, will Joe, first of all, be healthy, because he hasn't really been healthy since coming up to Detroit. I think Casey Mize is a serviceable option, but Flaherty's getting older. Charlie Morton has been in the league for what seems like 35 years. And, I think it's almost the problem that the other organization that we pay attention to here in Pittsburgh, the opposite of what they have, is they have a surplus of pitching, but they have no fielding players that can play the ball. I think if you're Detroit, you look at the way that lineup has been hitting, position players are great, defense is great, but ultimately when AJ Hinch won with Houston, he had power, right? Altuve could drive the ball, Correa could drive the ball, Springer could drive the ball. Now Yordan Alvarez is a home run power hitter, even not with Hinch there anymore. And I think at some point, even though analytics play a part, the game of baseball is still about driving the ball out of the ballpark. So those position players can be potential trade fodder, and I think you're going to need pitchers who ultimately can strike people out. And if you look at that rotation, Rogelio, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm probably on the head on this, they really only have one strikeout predominant pitcher, and that's number 29, who may or may not be there in a couple of years.
No, you're absolutely right. And looking at right now, I think Casey Mize last night showed a really good example of when he's on. The metrics don't, the outcome didn't dictate how he pitched last night. I thought he did pitch really good. Cleveland has some sort of voodoo magic thing that I do not understand how they work, where they can just, it drives me nuts. Watching that game last night in the press box, you have to be composed, and the fan part of me is yelling, going, like swearing up a storm.
Yeah.
But I digress. But you're right. It's even right now, when you don't see that kind of guy coming up out of AAA right now, or even AA. I mean, Troy Melton, I think Troy Melton's going to be the real deal. I mean, Troy Melton, a lot of people want him to throw more innings, but in reality, I'm glad that they're being conservative with him, because they don't need to be. I think Melton's a guy that could easily slot in the third or fourth spot in the rotation next year, and a guy you can still continue to build with. But beyond that, they don't have a K guy right now. And Flaherty has shown glimpses of it. It's just not consistent. His record against I posted this up, like how his record against 500 teams is significantly better. So you want that consistency. But I think that right now you're looking for the next big arm to come up out of nowhere. I mean, but it's not you're hoping that what Sears can do tomorrow is go out there and give the best performance. But I think a guy like Sears is going to make himself available in the spotlight fuel next year. I mean, he evolved really well this year for being a lefty, but what about a guy like Garrett Burhan? Does he go in the reliever role? What there's so many questions to be answered about that, but you're right. I think the Tigers really are going to have to inquire about getting another strikeout pitcher, because that also includes the bullpen too. And Vest last night imploding, it was cringeworthy, but you really going to need another guy also out of the bullpen too.
So, Rogelio, how do you think the Tigers go? Do they go far this year? Do they not? I'm curious to see your insight and your thoughts with a 5.5 game lead and a couple weeks left.
I think you have to be, and I was talking to somebody about this today, and they mentioned you have to be 3 starters deep, and I think the Tigers really need that to get themselves far in the playoffs. We saw a couple nights ago, Toronto with Trey, I can't say his last name correctly, Berserage, the gentleman that they drafted last year, came up, and they're like, hey, he has no limits. And he went out and got 19 swings and misses against Tampa. That's dangerous. Toronto's lineup is dangerous. And I think Toronto, I'm not afraid to say this. I think Toronto might come out of either Toronto or Seattle. I think Seattle's a team too that's also dangerous. They have very good pitching. Brian Wu's had a really good year, and Seattle's lineup has just been coming in its own as recently. So I think the Tigers will maybe get to the second portion, maybe get to the LCS. I just don't think they have enough horses pitching wise to get there. And that's where a team like Toronto or Seattle with better pitching is going to win the American League this year. I
think the big question too that I have is, do you really trust the lineup 1 through 9 still? They came on at the end of last season. We saw what they did against Houston and then against Cleveland. I just still think they're still so young. And I don't think it's feasible to assume that all of those guys in that lineup are going to be able to have at least average or better postseasons. I mean, at some point, you take Kerry Carpenter out of the equation. Can Torkelson keep up what he has been doing? Is Colt Keith going to continue to show signs of life? Wenzel Perez, Zach McKinstry, all those guys, you don't know at the bottom of the lineup if they're going to keep consistent. That's my big question. That's what I wonder about. And that's why I think, too, it goes back to the point of trying to rush everything in sports nowadays, which I think is what the point you made with everyone on social media. And I still remember back in the years when Erie was bringing up guys for the minors, Cole Keith, the most recent example, and guys would talk about, okay, he went 3 for 4, call him up. And baseball's a slow game. And, we saw with, I think, let's just take the last team that Hinch managed in Houston and the World Series that they won. If you accelerate things, Rogelio, I think the window becomes a lot smaller of a champion of window you can win a championship in. If they go big in trades and they go for it in 1 year, you probably have 2-3 years maybe to win a championship. I think the smart thing is the process, because they're still getting better. I mean, they're going to probably win the division and still probably win 90, 92 games.
Yeah, and the thing that baffles me is that fans just don't think that 92 wins is good, or what they're doing right now is, honestly, like it is frustrating to watch this sometimes. Going, you guys realize what this was 2 years ago?
Right.
You know, I realize that I used to have to write up Daniel Cabrera being a thing. Like it's one of those things where it's like, from a writer standpoint, podcaster standpoint, my job has become a lot more fun. That being said, as in a critical eye, could Scott Harris gone a little more non-conservative with his trades? Sure. But at the same time, you see what he did with Kyle Finnegan, what it ended up working out with. Again, but it's just, you're right. It is Cole Keefe has evolved a little bit, but everybody wants to look at, well, he's not hitting 20 home runs. He's not the guy that you guys said he was going to be. We never said he was going to be this 20 home run guy instantly. Look at the age of Riley Green. Riley Green is just neat. He's tied the record set by Tony Clark for most home runs by a drafted player. Think about that for a second. The draft's been around since 65. Now we have a player now doing that. That is a really slow build, my friend. And so that's progress. And we have to acknowledge that, because he's done it under the age of 25. He just turned 25. But we're going to sit there and ignore that. We're going to sit there and go, well, he's striking out too much, and the Tigers are just going to choke it away. Like, just for once, just a little bit of optimism. Please, for the love of all things, let's just calm down. Let's look at the progress and consider that. And if they win 90 games this year and they make the playoffs, how is that not good enough? I don't get it.
Well, let's be honest. I think Tigers fans are old enough to remember the 2012, 2013 years, and we went the opposite way, right? With the hitting lineup, and you factored in guys who couldn't run the bases and were beholden to trying to hit the ball 425 feet to the Little Caesar sign in left center field. I mean, Miguel Cabrera, Prince Fielder, Omar Infante, Johnny Peralta, these are all guys that, unless they get that ball up in the air, you're not connecting on anything. You're going to go 0 for most nights. And so I think time and patience, to your point, is a really big thing. Rogelio, man, this has been wonderful. It's always great to talk to you. Hopefully we can chat again next week when we're talking championship series for Erie. But it would be something. It would be something if we could see 3 organizations with the Tigers, and maybe 4 if we get to the Fall Classic in November with a championship. But great stuff as always, man. I appreciate you as always taking the time. This has been a bunch of fun.
A great conversation. Again, hopefully the Tigers just get at least a run against Cleveland right now. I mean, geez, oh, Pete, folks. I mean, that frustrates me. This game tonight doesn't frustrate me. Don't get me wrong. Every fan out there should be frustrated right now. But Isaac, it was good to talk, and we'll talk soon, my friend.
Yeah, talk soon, buddy. Great stuff.
See you, man.
All right, Rogelio Castillo of Tigers Minor League Report. You can follow them at Tigers ML Report. They do such great work. They're talking everything with minor league organizations, and of course, as Rogelio mentioned, they talk the Tigers too. We talk about Rabbits Investments a lot because they're a great sponsor and a great partner of our show. They keep financial guidance simple. More information, go to our website, www.rabbitsinvestments.com, or you can call their phone number during normal business hours at 814-734-3433. Rabbits Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. We're going to bring on a Pirates fan in just a moment. Not that we really want to talk about that, but before we do, in case you missed our earlier announcement from this week, it's probably the biggest announcement we've ever had at the Gem City Sports Podcast Network, and we're thrilled to be able to announce that we're bringing Off the Record, the Erie Otters official podcast, to the network. So excited to be able to partner with them. Their show is going to drop every Thursday at 7 o'clock, but for those of you who didn't see the news, we're actually going to be doing a special combined episode at the home opener this Saturday already. I know, it's 75 out, it's sunny, September. Don't matter. It's always time for hockey season. That home opener coming to you at 7 o'clock as the Otters are back in town. And we will be there for that home opener for a special 3:30 p.m. kickoff episode between us and the Erie Otters, the Off the Record podcast. All right, now the resident Pirates fan, Trevor Kubea, joins us. We're talking about baseball teams that are successful. It's nice, Trevor. For like 20 minutes every single week, I get to talk about teams that actually perform well on the diamond. So I hopefully you could enjoy that conversation backstage too, because admittedly, it's really hard to talk anything Pirates with positivity nowadays.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, watching the game this afternoon, they go down 4-0, then they come back, and then things fall apart toward the end. I do love my Buccos, though. I've seen them play plenty of times over the years, 30 games this year in person on top of watching over 100 on TV. I don't miss a game. They're still my guys, but man, it's it's not an easy team to follow. But again, with Raj and the Tigers, and of course, how about 2 Tigers minor league teams winning championships yesterday? How terrific is that? And, of course, I've got a little Altoona curve bias. I've got to say that, seeing Connor Griffin go 3 for 4, even though against it's the hometown team, great to see for my Buccos and their future. But hey, hopefully the SeaWolves can pull it out here over the week.
And it's great to see them flourish in Altoona before they flounder in Pittsburgh in a year or two. But I digress. Speaking of that, Trevor, before we get into this, it's actually fascinating. One of the great stories about you, in addition to your amazing bow ties, is the fact that you've now been to almost every single Major League Baseball stadium.
Yeah, I've got 5 left to go. I've been to 28. That includes, of course, the Trop, the Oakland Coliseum. I saw the A's in Sacramento this year. I went to Steinbrenner this year. So there's a few extras in there. I've got 5 left, the 2 in Texas and the 3 in Southern California. I'm planning on finishing off the full slate of major league stadiums next year. So really looking forward to that and hoping to pull that off. But yeah, that's my big hobby in the off season. If I'm not in the office, well, chances are I'm probably at a ballpark somewhere. I had just an incredible summer traveling all around. I went to 11 different ballparks this year. I believe 6 or 7 of them were new ones. So it was a really, really cool year and can't wait to build off of that. But I go from traveling to baseball games and being able to enjoy that. Now I get to go travel to hockey games. I always joke and say, it's like the same thing, except instead of going to watch a baseball game, I get to go talk about a hockey game. So it gets even better.
And you're in Ontario fix-in for the entire season, which is where you're going to be on Friday when the Otters open their season in Guelph before the home opener. We're going to get to that in just a moment, but I think it would be exciting to talk first about our partnership. Obviously, for those of you who have not seen it, we're partnering with the Otters. Off the Record podcast is back and in video form this year. Can't wait to showcase some of those episodes, Trevor. And I really think when you and I talked about the idea of this, I think podcasting has, of course, taken over the sphere. That's why we do what we do here at the network. And we're just really excited to get a chance to showcase what you guys do. You got a lot of great episodes lined up with a lot of great players and behind-the-scenes stuff. Give us a little bit of an insight as to what you can expect for Off the Record in 2025.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is moving to video. And that's something that Tim Quinn, my broadcast partner, and I had talked a lot about, going into this season was how do we move this to video and, try to generate buzz that way. And I think, being able to see the players, be in there, be in the studio with you and, see their facial expressions and their reactions and how they maybe tell a story versus, just the audio form, I think was a big thing for us. And now the partnership really allows us to bring it to light and also, get more eyes on the show itself with the great job that you guys do at Gem City and, allow maybe us to get a few more eyes on your guys' stuff, maybe not just our podcast, but your show and just kind of, cross collaborate in that way and be able to bring it all to life. So, I think we can expect a lot of great stories, a lot of great moments. I know the show's always been good for some laughs, but I think at the heart of it, it's the stories and the players having that platform to tell them their story, where they come from, what they like to do away from the rink. Because I think one thing that gets lost on a lot of athletes is, they're not robots, right? They're human beings who have these terrific stories and, to be able to sit down and try and get those out of them and chat a little bit about that is something I've really enjoyed about the podcast. And I can't wait to continue and, again, bring it up a little bit of a level here to on video.
And as we know, out of all the sports, the most robotic players, at least in stereotype, are hockey players. So it's good. It's going to be really neat to get to see that. I will say, and you know this from your experience and my experience in TV too, is that players really open up when you talk to them in an open forum, in an open setting. So if you've never really gotten a chance to hear what makes a player a person, make sure to tune in to Off the Record, because there are going to be so many great interviews, and not interviews, it's more conversations that you can hear and the behind the scenes access as to what goes in to their daily life and the excitement that they have each and every single year. Because you have to remember, a lot of these kids are high schoolers, and if not young potential collegiate athletes that are going to be doing great things, whether it be in the NHL or other things in their career. So looking forward to that. And of course, Trevor, we've got our opening night special Saturday at 3:30 obviously we've seen for the last few years the Otters do opening night better than any organization, maybe in hockey, whether it be minor or professional. You roll out the red carpet, you have your fan fest. So 3:30, we're doing a special episode. It's going to go from 3:30 to 4:30. We're talking with players. We're talking with members of the team leadership. It's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of great opportunity to get to showcase opening night and what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. This is, I would say, our biggest addition to the opening night lineup and the FanFest lineup this year. Of course, you have the staples, the live music, the player red carpet show to introduce everybody and the fan interaction that comes alongside that. But, bringing a live podcast that folks are going to be able to tune into, obviously, and to be able to see live when they're down there at the FanFest is going to be just terrific. And really looking forward to what that's going to look like, and bringing it to life with you and Tim is going to be a blast. And, I'm really looking forward to what that could bring. So it's going to be a fun show. I hope you'll tune in and join us as we talk Otters hockey and just, again, get ready to go. You mentioned it a moment ago, Isaac, it's wild that we're here in mid-September and we're talking hockey, and in 2 nights we're getting this thing underway. It's summer flew by, and I'm just excited to get it all going.
Man, it's going to be a wild and great season. Of course, you can see this episode on our social channels, the Otter social media channels on YouTube as well. And Tim Quinn and I have some fun things planned. So don't let us get creative and crazy with the camera, because who knows where we'll be. Maybe we'll be on the red carpet. Maybe we'll be parading down 12th Street. I don't know. We're going to see where this episode takes us on Saturday. But of course, that precedes the game. And let's talk about the team, Trevor, because there is a lot of excitement around the team. And there were a lot of question marks, no question, surrounding the team and what it would look like. Of course, the forefront being Matthew Schaefer right now with the New York Islanders after being drafted number 1. Does he come back to Erie? Who knows? That's ultimately going to be up to them. But let's talk about the guys that are here ahead of the first game against Guelph coming up on Friday. There are some familiar faces, but a lot of guys you will be seeing for the first time, and some as well that are taking advantage of the new NCAA rule. Give us a look into the roster, who we can expect to be some big-name players on the team in 2025.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, right? New faces is a big key with this Erie Otters group heading into 25-26. You look at, Luke Plunk is a guy I think that's really going to stand out to a lot of people. A first-round pick in the USHL, General Manager Dave Brown did a terrific job in scouting him and getting him here to Erie. He's a Northern Michigan vet for next season, so he's a guy I think is really going to contribute on the top 6. Alex Misiak, familiar name, brother of Martin Misiak. They had a little snafu with the jerseys. I was at the preseason game on Friday night in Stratford. Flint only had dark jerseys. We only had dark jerseys, so we had to take last year's white jerseys and make them into for the new guys, right, to get through that game the other night. And Alex Misiak wore number 90, and you could have sworn it was Martin out there on the ice.
He built-in safety blanket for a situation like that.
Yes, quite exactly. He was one they didn't have to strip the name bar off of. He was able to just toss the jersey on, you're good to go. But seeing him out on the ice, I mean, it was unbelievable. He adds a little bit more of a physical edge than Marty did. The shot isn't quite what Marty's is, but of course, Younger can grow into that. So I'm really excited to see what he brings. They're kind of different types of players, but also there's that same little swagger about them. And I think that's the biggest part of what he's going to bring to this locker. Jake Murray, first-round pick, a big kid, going to go to the greasy areas, probably going to score some kind of grimy goals, but that's huge to add to a lineup that in his rookie year. Tyler Cooper, I thought, looked terrific in that preseason game. Second-round pick, scored 60-plus goals last year. Obviously, very different level of hockey, but second-round pick, a guy who could really provide a lot of value. From the returning perspective, you look at Dylan Edwards. He's going to be a big-time contributor. Wesley Royston, I think, is going to have a huge year. I think, if we're making bold predictions, I think 30 goals isn't out of the realm of possibility for what Wesley Royston can provide. He had I thought, a terrific year last season. Hit a little bit of a lull toward the middle, but if he can keep that goal-scoring record consistent, he's going to have a big number in that column toward the end of the year. Having Noah Erliden back in net and Charlie Burns, great goaltending tandem, great 1-2. I think those guys are going to really keep the Otters in a lot of games. I think this Erie team, Chris Millett has said it leading up to this week, and this team isn't going to score a ton of goals. They're not going to win a lot of 8-6 games, but what they are going to do is be incredibly difficult to play against. They're going to play a very physical brand of hockey, which is going to go over, I think, very well here in Erie, Pennsylvania. And, they're going to win some 2-1 games. It might not be pretty every night, but they're going to grind it out, and they're certainly going to be tough to play against. And another player I forgot to mention there as well, Ritter Coombs, Jamestown, New York native, over 200 penalty minutes last season, I believe in the Null. He will be, I think, a big-time fan favorite, Erie, Pennsylvania. He's if you haven't seen his headshot, go on to our website, ottershockey.com, click on his name. It's certainly worth viewing. He is just a spark plug, and I think he's going to add a lot to this lineup.
Lake Placid is synonymous with great hockey players, great hockey names, and great hockey faces. It's not Ritter Goon, it is Ritter Coombs, although maybe it'll get there by the end of the season. And you make a good point, Trevor. I think you have to make the argument that if there's one spot that's a question mark, it is, of course, the youth and maybe some inexperience of the defense. But the advantage you have now, if a guy like Tyler Cooper looks so good in the preseason, your center depth down the middle is pretty good. You've got Frasca, Challenger, Murray, and in some order, Cooper there sitting there with the fourth line. I think that's a big help. To me, of course, for what it was is the goaltending with Noah and Charlie coming back. We know how much Noah aided to the team last year, and Charlie Burns has been a savior anytime there's a guy that needs to be there. So maybe it will be a little bit of relying on goaltending early in the year. And I think it's interesting you mentioned the grind part of this team. You and I both know from being around the team, you more than I have in the last 2 years, what's the one thing that Erie clearly was outmatched in? Size and grinding on the boards and being aggressive to the point of attack. Something this year that maybe they now size up better against teams in the rest of the league.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be huge, especially, I'm curious to see overall the OHL. The OHL has been very much a score-first issue over the last 10 years or so, right? I'm wondering if now with this influx of American players, this influx of college fits, will the OHL kind of have a little bit of a shift to more of that college-style games where you're seeing it seems like Erie Otter, who I think are going to play more of a true NCAA by the style of game than perhaps an OHL, old school OHL style game. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all shakes out. Of course, we're in the first full year of this rule being in effect. So I think Dave Brown has done just a marvelous job of going out and kind of being ahead of the curve when it comes to the rule and, being able to bring in players and plan for some of the guys moving on. I think they've done a tremendous job of being ready to go for that. So, yeah, I think overall it's going to be really interesting to see how the league adapts. The Western Conference for me is really wide open. I mean, teams that are really going for it this year are out east. Brantford, for my money, is going to be the best team in the league, and they're going to be very tough to beat. Niagara has been really interesting. They've made a lot of moves, new GM there, new head coach there, and they've ranked number 5 in the power rankings in the OHL. They made the CHL top 10 to start the season ahead of the London Knights, which I thought was interesting. So they're going to be interesting this year. I mean, you look at the West, Windsor and Kitchener for me are the 2 teams to beat. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but it's going to be a fun year. I think this Erie team, they're going to be a fun watch. And, I think they're going to be something a little different than what fans have come to expect over the last couple of years. But I think they're really going to buy into the physical style. And, everybody remembers what happens on March 2nd. I don't think we're going to see that again, but, I think that more physical style and, the physical edge is going to be brought back to this group.
So we can expect a lot, I'm sure, from the home opener Saturday at 7. Of course, FanFest begins early. We hope to see you there live and in person with the Gem City Sports Podcast Network and their Off the Record podcast. But when you get to the arena, there's so many things on opening night that you can expect besides the fact that hockey is back. What should fans look forward to throughout the day as we get ready for the rechristening of a new season?
Yeah, so let's start with FanFest. 3 o'clock, get there early on the front lawn of the Erie Insurance Arena. Isaac, me, and Tim will be set up somewhere along the red carpet doing our thing at 3:30. At 3 o'clock, local band Rainmaker, who, if you'll join us on the broadcast on Friday night, had a great sit-down interview with Bob Cataldi, who is the billet for Connor McDavid when he was in town. He's the bass player. They're going to be playing. Bob said they have 200 different songs in their repertoire. Said we'll play disco, we'll play stuff you're hearing now, we'll play country. So there's something for everybody music-wise. Food trucks galore, a lot of activities with the kids as well. Play a red carpet walk-in, which is always a great tradition. I'll be up on the stage welcoming everybody in for that. So really looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Once the doors open, first 1,500 get a magnet schedule, and everybody gets a rally foul. So double giveaway. And we hope that we can get as many people to pack the rink and be loud and welcome Erie Otters hockey back. And hey, once the puck drops, and hoping for a great game between two great division rivals.
And again, a team that you know well in the Kitchener Rangers coming in your building Saturday at 7. I got one more big pressing question for you, Trevor. This was a fan question that some people submitted to me, and I know that it probably trumps everything we've talked about so far tonight. Do you have the bow tie picked out for Saturday evening?
I do, and I'll actually, they've got a great story. So Darcy, who does a terrific job, she's our director of business ops. She has a friend who took some of the old COVID masks that they had for the team store and turned them into Erie Otters bow ties. So I have two bow ties now, a navy blue and a gold one with the Otters logo on there. So I will certainly be breaking one of those out for the home opener on Saturday.
Man, this guy knows how to get it done. I tell you what, if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't be dressed properly ever. So the fact that you do it on your own, brother, more power to you. That's awesome. Can't wait to see you break that out Saturday. Again, can't wait to be with you and the team when we do our combined episode at 3:30. Make sure to join us. Of course, be there in person. We'll give a big shout out to everyone who's there too. Make sure you can see the players on the red carpet. And of course, puck drop 7 o'clock. Get there early. Be excited. Be loud. Can't wait, man. It's going to be a great season. You can catch the Off the Record podcast Thursday at 7. Trev, can't wait for Saturday. Going to be a great night.
Isaac, it's going to be a blast. Thanks so much for having me on, and can't wait to join you on Saturday, and we're going to have a great show.
Trevor Kubea of the Otters joining us on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. Great stuff, and we can't wait to partner with them every single week. Thursdays at 7 o'clock, you can watch the Off the Record podcast on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. It's simulcast with the Otters social media platforms as well, and just can't wait. It's going to be an exciting show. No doubt the biggest show we've had on our airwaves since we started just over a year ago. Hard to believe that we've been running this thing for about a year, and we love all of you, and we're happy that you're with us each and every single day. We've also had Rebbitz Investments with us almost each and every single day here, and we're proud to have them as our prime sponsor. Rebbitz Investments keeps financial guidance simple. If you want more info, go to their website, www.rebbitzinvestments.com, or give them a call during normal business hours at 814-734-3433. Hey, by the way, we put this out on social media. Here's our official fall show schedule. Began this week. Of course, we have our podcast every Wednesday, 8 o'clock, with all things local sports. Off the Record slides into the Thursday slot. We have high school football rapid reaction every Friday at 10 o'clock, and then Saturday, just catch up on all the shows that you miss, because you may have missed some of the ones we just talked about. You may also have missed the Rust Belt Rundown on Monday. Why you would, I have no idea. But life gets busy, and that may happen. And the host, one of our two hosts on Rust Belt Rundown, Mr. Nick Artman, joining us on a Wednesday. My friend, I can't wait for Saturday, man. I'm sad you're going to miss it.
Oh, dude, I was sitting back there, just sitting backstage, kind of just watching along, and I'm so upset I got to miss it. So I'm so excited for this partnership. I think it's going to be great. I think when you and I set out to kind of build this thing, we never would have imagined in a year we'd be where we are, and it's a huge thanks to the Otters and to Trevor and the team over there. I think sky's the limit. It's going to be fun. Content's going to be great, and I think I'm going to be really jealous that I'm missing Saturday.
Nice thing is, man, we're going to be there a lot this season. We'll do a lot of live shows there in the building too. It's going to be a special night. We're just thankful for the Otters for partnering with us, and 4 shows every single week. So you get your fix with the gridiron, you get your fix for hockey. We throw some high school sports, of course, on Wednesday, as we always do. Some college along the way too. But we're talking NFL right now, my friend. Week 2 showed us some harsh realities that maybe we weren't expecting in week number 1. I'm going to save my best for last here at the end. But in case you don't know, we do this every single Wednesday. Nick is going to dissect all the crazy headline predictions that I make for week number 2 of the NFL season. I give what I think the Monday headline will be for the games on Sunday. I think I was fairly accurate, minus the Steelers losing on Sunday. Bills dominated, really wasn't a competition against the New York Jets. Browns offense was struggling again. I said Shedeur Sanders should start over Joe Flacco. You're going to notice I'm not really going to change my tenor much this week. On Pittsburgh, I said Rodgers would regress. He did, but I thought they'd win the game, and they did not. Yeah. So let's start, Nick, first and foremost with the Buffalo Bills, because I think these are the easiest headlines to write. And I went a different direction because your co-host on the show, Paul Adamczyk, is a diehard Dolphins fan. And it's a good thing that he's getting ready to have a child, because he's going to need some happiness in his life with the way that Miami is playing currently. So this headline's for him. The headline, which will be on Friday morning because the teams play tomorrow night, will be Fins down. Bills' dominant Thursday win means that Mike McDaniel is out of a job.
You know what, dude? I think you're absolutely spot on with this one because there is one, I don't think any way that the Bills come out, barring, Josh Allen injury bigger than a nosebleed,
Right.
then I don't think they're coming out with a loss in this one. I mean, you always worry about Miami's offense. I do think Mike McDaniel is an offensive wizard. Maybe not a good head coach. Unfortunately, I just think when you get, some of these offensive wizards, they're not great offensive coordinators. Great offensive coordinators are not great head coaches. And I really think that's what Mike McDaniel is. So there's always a chance that they could do something special on offense, but that defense is just bad of Miami. So I think the Bills showed last week they didn't need Josh Allen to win. James Cook looks, I will admit defeat on my Cook hate. He looks like a man on fire. They can absolutely win with Josh Allen. I think they roll through this. Now, it would be interesting to see if Mike McDaniel gets fired. Man, it sure sounds like it. If you listen to his post-game press conferences, he sounds like a guy that knows his time is done.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. I mean, they got Bills, then Jets, Panthers, Chargers. They don't have a bye until their full schedule isn't loading here on me. Their bye is week 12, so that's pretty late if they're trying to wait up until that point. So I like this one. I think you're spot on here. And then Mike McDaniel goes to become an offensive consultant in San Francisco, and they make a run to the Super Bowl.
Well, and here's the thing, is there's no shame in being a coordinator in the NFL.
No.
We've seen Robert Saleh. Didn't work out in New York, right? He goes back to where he started in San Francisco, and he's doing great things. I mean, who can make a living being a coordinator in the NFL in college? Chip Kelly's doing it now.
Yep.
And so it just doesn't always work out. And it is wild to think, though, that a team with the likes of Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, of course, they got Minka in that trade with Pittsburgh for Jalen Ramsey, that they just can't figure it out. But I don't know. They right now look like the worst team in the East, and that's saying something because the Jets and Patriots I just don't think are all that.
No. Paul even said on Monday, if you're looking for an easy game to recover from a broken nose, the Dolphins are a pretty good game to rest on.
Man, that thing must have been messed up if Josh Allen sat out for 3 plays.
Absolutely.
I don't even want to know.
Yep.
I think they got all the wedding pictures in over the summer. Maybe they had to take some follow-ups in the middle of September. Allie says go Pats, by the way. They got a big win. I don't even remember who they played. They got a big win last week. They're 1-1, same record as Pittsburgh. We'll get to them in just a moment. All right, Nick, let's talk Cleveland Browns. I don't know what to do here. I kind of threw a headline at the wall and hope it sticks. Last week I said that it should be Shedur's time to start. But I'm going to go in a different direction this week because I quite frankly think that their plan is pretty obvious. So, they've got a game that they're going to lose again this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And here's what I think with the Packers coming into town. The headline on Monday for the Cleveland Browns will be this. It is going to say, don't take the cheese. The Browns are clearly openly tanking for a top quarterback next year, and they won't sit Joe Flacco after dropping to 0-3.
Man, it looks like that's what they're doing, but when you hear the leadership of the locker room, like Myles Garrett talk in his post-game press conference, I don't think that's what the team thinks they're going to do.
But what are they supposed to say?
No, I get what you're.
You know what I mean?
I hear what you're saying, but that can't be what leadership sold Myles Garrett to get him to sign that record-setting contract at the time. They couldn't have said, hey, we're going to openly tank. We'll sign you for this long deal because in 2 years we're going to have the top quarterback in the draft. Yeah, I can't think that that's what got Myles Garrett excited to stick around in Pittsburgh. Don't get me wrong. The money, the record-setting contract, that helps. That absolutely helps. I think Paul and I talked about this at length on Monday, and if you missed it, go back and check out the podcast anywhere you get your podcast. But I said the same thing, and Paul and I both said when the season started, you go with a guy like Joe Flacco because he's not supposed to make those mistakes. He's supposed to play mistake-free football, and they're supposed to win some games. This defense looks elite again. Coach Wayne Bradford said the same thing on Monday, and if he gives the seal of approval, I'm following his lead on a defense. So, but the problem is Flacco has not played mistake-free football. He's thrown 3 interceptions. He had that fumble last week. I get that some of it hasn't been his fault, but he's not playing well. So you insert Dylan Gabriel in trash, in the end of the game, trash time at the end of the game, garbage time at the end of the game, and he throws a touchdown pass to Dylan Sampson. Like, I think at this point, he's not winning you the games. You might as well see what you have. I would put in Dylan Gabriel over Shador at this point, but either way, Flacco is not the option. I think they should sit him going into this game.
Here's the thing that I was most intrigued about with the Browns-Ravens game. It wasn't that far off at halftime. It was a 10-3 game at the half. And while I understand the teams coming out and they're saying, well, we're competing, we're trying to win, and Myles Garrett probably was sold that vision, I don't think a team that believes they can be competitive just lays down like a doorknob in a divisional game in the second half. I just don't think that happens. As bad as the quarterback might be, and you talk about that defense that they looked to lead. Well, they didn't in the second half. And this was with Derek. This was with
fourth quarter. They didn't look good in the fourth quarter.
And this is with Derrick Henry having what I think statistically was the worst game as a Raven he's had and the worst rushing game he's had in 7 years. So, I just think if that's your vision looking to next year for a quarterback, then you probably just need to start Joe Flacco the rest of the season. And you should move on from the 2 rookies that you drafted because you're clearly not going to use them. And that's okay. If that's what you want to do, it's what you want to do. But then you question why you wasted a 3rd and a 5th round draft pick on these 2 guys, and you move on. So it's rough in Cleveland right now. We knew it was going to be. And, man, I'll tell you what, we talked about with Rogelio early in the show about being patient and waiting for things to materialize. Just imagine what life would have been like if they would have waited for Baker Mayfield in Cleveland to get to where he was. With him lighting things up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are now 2-0. But that was a while ago.
I saw this meme. This was too good not to share. I should have pulled it up to share on the show. And it said when you listen to people talk about Baker Mayfield, they talk about him. It'll never not be funny when Baker is referred to as a comeback story, and the thing he came back from was simply being a Cleveland Brown.
Right.
And that's the truth. I mean, we'd be having a different conversation if they would have kept him in town. That's for sure.
It is a difficult thing to be on the shores of Lake Erie and be able to resurrect your NFL career. Unless you're Myles Garrett and you're just going to get paid $97 million a minute to play football.
Money talks.
Which, let's be honest, that's the real reason he signed back in Cleveland. He doesn't care about winning. He really get out of here. Yep. All right. Speaking of winning, the Steelers didn't do that in week number 2. And I think Caleb Johnson should be exiled to the shores of Lake Erie to Cleveland. Because how on earth do you not know that rule? It is the same in every single level of football except for high school. You touch the football or the kickoff, the ball lands in the area, the kickoff, anywhere in the field of play, including the end zone. It's a live ball, brother. Recover that thing.
Yep.
Anyway, clearly I'm not past it, but we'll move on. So, in the interest of making people that matter most to me happy, i.e. my wife, who is going to be watching this game on Sunday with me with great intent for the Steelers and the Patriots. Every single year we talk about this, Nick Artman, right? And this is the time. It's an early season window with a 1:00 start on the road against a team that's inferior to you. So that's why my headline is Groundhog Day. Steelers are going to lose another one of these to New England. I really believe that, and I think they're going to be sitting at 1-2 and wondering what the heck happened from week 1.
Listen, you're not going to get pushback on me from this one. I think it's an offensive showdown because I don't necessarily believe in New England's offense, and I'm not just pandering to your family either. I'm not trying to keep you in the podcast afloat, so she helps us out. But no, I mean, I think that I really like Drake May. I think he is a star in the making. But what it comes down to is Vrabel is going to run the ball 50 times this game. Between Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, I think you end up with 50 touches in this game because the rushing defense of Pittsburgh you might as well just open. It's like Noah standing at the shores and parting the Red Sea. I mean, these guys are running outside of Zach Charbonnet. Everybody else has been able to run on the Steelers. Yeah. And so I think that's absolutely going to be the game plan coming in. From what I understand, Harmon is still going to be out. I'm looking at the injury report now. Loudermilk went on IR. Highsmith is going to be out. Harmon is questionable, but I would be weary of that. So the defensive line and the linebacking core is taking a big hit in this one. I don't believe in the Steelers defense right now, outside of Jalen Ramsey. So I agree. I think that's a very accurate headline. They're going to lose. I wouldn't call them an inferior opponent though, but I do think that this defense is going to be a liability all year.
Well, no, they are an inferior opponent because we've been told all offseason that this roster has a bunch of big-name players on it. And this is why I get so frustrated, and I did in the offseason, because you're signing all these defensive guys, whether it's TJ to a big contract who has looked invisible minus about 3 plays in the first 2 games. Jalen Ramsey's probably, like you mentioned, the best player on that defense. And for some reason, Darius Slay's made an impact. Where is everybody else? I get Alex Highsmith's been banged up. You have a lot of guys who are questionable who came out of games. But it's not like you have played 2 offensive juggernauts in your first 2 games of the season. I mean, Justin Fields and the New York Jets shouldn't scare anybody. We saw last week. And I'm sorry, Sam Darnold, it's not like he's got the world to throw to. Jackson Smith-Njigba's a good receiver, but they do not have a lot of depth at that receiver position. And I look at the defense, and I think even fully healthy, Nick, I mean, they're going to have to rely at this point, if it doesn't get better quick, on Aaron Rodgers to score 30 points a game. And that's not a recipe you can ask for to win.
They need to go see our friend Todd over at Rebich Investments, because this $162 million investment in the defense is not working.
He would not approve.
They need to flip some assets, my friend, because it's just not working. And that's supposed to be the identity of this team, right? And okay, it's week 3. We sound like we're overreacting. But when has Tomlin ever been known to be the guy that makes the adjustments to make the change? No, he doesn't do that. He tries to impose his will week in and week out. So I don't see this defense changing, until they blame it on a coordinator again at the end of the season.
Well, and I think the scary thing about it is that they really don't have another choice. It's not like they're that deep. So you're relying on your starters, both on offense and on defense, to be able to make things work for you. Yeah. You're not like a Philadelphia who can go 2 or 3 guys deep. And the thing that concerns me the most, the defense is a big problem. The fact that they can't run the ball is the other problem. Arthur Smith has been built for history on run offense. Jaylen Warren, outside of catching the football, did absolutely nothing through 2 weeks. Kenneth Gainwell was more of a factor in week 1, and even so much so in week number 2. So, I mean, if you're literally relying on a 40-something-year-old quarterback in Aaron Rodgers to win you football games, it's just not going to work that way. And I think New England, I don't know what the line is. I think New England should be favored in this game.
Well, they're not, but it's only 1.5. When you said about inferior opponent, I was gonna say the same thing. It's Pittsburgh by 1.5.
Yeah, I mean, I would favor the Patriots I would hammer that line for New England, to be quite honest with you. I think they're going to win this game. I actually think it's going to be by a wide margin. I think you're looking at like a 21-10 final.
I would agree
for the
that.
Patriots. And now, if you're Pittsburgh, the schedule all of a sudden that looked pretty easy now may not necessarily be, given the way that they're playing. I mean, if they lose to New England, Minnesota's who knows with J.J. McCarthy. But again, it's a toss-up game, and you're playing away in Ireland, so you never know how that game's going to happen. And then you got a game against Cleveland before you travel to Cincinnati, who's going to have a Jake Browning-led team that is better than I think what people will give them credit for. Green Bay, Indy, Chargers, Bengals, Bears, 4 of those games at least are losses. So where are the wins?
You got to win these next 4 games if you have a hope to winning, to making it to the playoffs. So no, it is gloomy in the Three Rivers. That's for sure.
Well, the good news is we have a lot of positive things to look forward to this weekend, including, of course, our show for the Honors at 3:30. So if you're feeling worried about the games on Sunday, you can just enjoy the fact that we have some other stuff going on. Speaking of that, of course, our show for the Honors Saturday at 3:30. It's our opening night special. We'll go for about an hour, and then the game happening at 7 will be there. Well, I'll be in hopefully the Rebridge Investments area that Nick got to be in last night for President Obama, and he made fun of me. I know us mere peasants in the nosebleed section.
Listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. It's really what it is.
I'm kidding. No, thanks again for getting us tickets. But Nick texts me in the middle of almost in the middle of the speech saying, "Hey, where are you? I'm up in the press box." I was about to jump right over there and sit in the booth next to you.
Listen, I don't think that's an event you would want to jump a press booth.
No, probably
You'd
not. No.
You'd have had 10 Secret Service guys on you in 5.7 seconds.
I would have gone from reporting on the news to making the news, and not the right way. So
exactly.
Anyway, join us. We're going to be outside the arena 3:30 on Saturday. Weather looks beautiful. No reason for you not to be there for the Otters and the Kitchener Rangers on Saturday. And high school football rapid reaction coming up Friday at 10 o'clock before we get back into Rust Belt Rundown on Monday. Enjoy your Wednesday, everybody. Take care. Have a great weekend. We'll see you all back on Friday for high school